So you've probably heard by now, but Nintendo has just released some additional details regarding their new expanded online service that they call the Expansion Pack. If you're not familiar with Nintendo's online service for the Switch, basically they have a pretty standard online service for a few years now, a pretty reasonable cost as well. It's only $20 a year, which if you compare that to like Xbox Live, PSN, is much cheaper. You got access to online services as well as some retro NES and Super NES games. I mean, in this day and age, you can, buy like 2 meals at Taco Bell for $20, depending on what you're buying. But so now they're expanding that service with the Expansion Pack, which people are not happy about, and I can't blame them. The value of this Expansion Pack is pretty poor considering the price increase. I'm not too happy about it either. Basically, instead of paying $20 a year for online services, NES games and Super NES games, you'll now have to pay $50 a year for the same services, plus only 14 Sega Genesis games, 9 Nintendo 64 games, and the Animal Crossing Happy Home Paradise DLC. Now, I'll be honest, if you're going to play all these N64 games, Sega Genesis games, and take advantage of the Animal Crossing DLC, then $50 a year may not be such a bad price. But the fact is, how many people are actually going to take advantage of all three of these services in the same year and be worth $50 a year? So I'll first start out by saying that maybe Nintendo could have gone a different route with their pricing. Maybe $10 a year for each additional piece, like $10 for N64 games, $10 for Sega Genesis games, $10 for Animal Crossing. So I don't know how much overlap there's going to be on those types of systems, that DLC. I know I'll try out the DLC for Animal Crossing. I have Animal Crossing, haven't booted up in like a year though, because it seems like myself and a lot of other people, we played for a few months hardcore, and then after a while, you just stop for a while and you got to get back into it, which I have not yet. So I'll probably play the DLC, but then it's is it worth the extra money per year? Am I going to play Nintendo 64 games? And am I going to play Sega Genesis games? I'll be honest, I'll probably play Nintendo 64 games. They got some good games there. I'm pretty hyped about that. And I mean, there's so little games, I can probably list them off real quick. Basically, you got Mario Kart 64, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64, Mario Tennis, Super Mario 64, Dr. Mario 64, and a few others. But I mean, that's a pretty good game lineup, and they're supposed to be adding more. And then you've also got Sega Genesis, which I'll be honest, that's not a huge deal to me. I've played Genesis a few times in my lifetime, but it's not something I grew up playing, so the nostalgia is not really there. But they got games like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Streets of Rage 2, Echo the Dolphin, if that's even how you say it. I don't know, I've never played most of these games, but maybe that's useful to you, and maybe the $50 a year for you might be worth it if you play all three of these things. But that's, like I said, that's the problem. Most people are not going to take advantage of all three of these things for $50 a year. But even then, even if you use all of these services throughout the year, you pay $50 for it, the problem is as soon as you cancel, your access is gone, which I guess that's how they've been doing it for the NES and Super NES. Not too bad. So they'll just do the same thing for the N64 and Sega Genesis. But my main problem is DLC. So first of all, if you go back 10 or 15 years, DLC was just basically non-existent. Probably 15 years ago now, on like the PS2, Xbox days. You bought the game, you played it, and that was it. Sometimes you could buy additional discs and stuff for extra additional DLC, but once you bought the game, that was it. That's what you played. Once we got around to the 360 PS3 era, we started adding in DLC, where you'd purchase additional content on the online store and you could add it to your game. Stuff that wasn't promised in the original, so it's kind of extra stuff that you had to pay for, and that was reasonable. And then we eventually got to the point where game companies would basically plan out the DLC before they even launched the game. So they'd launch the game and alongside say like, hey, there's going to be some DLC in a few months, and that kind of irked people. I mean, why not include it with the game to start with? But that was just an additional moneymaker, Just like everybody's always finding new ways to make money. And then now it's getting even worse. Instead of buying the DLC and owning the DLC, you now have to pay yearly for the DLC. So let's say you want to play Animal Crossing for the next decade. You're going to be paying $50 a year for the extra DLC that you want to play. And that really adds up. Whereas, if there are 4 different DLC packs originally, and you only wanted 2 of them, you could buy them 2 up front for like, let's say $20 or something, and you could play those until your console dies or whatever. So that's pretty tough right there, and it's kind of annoying that Nintendo is going that way. And what makes it even more frustrating for Nintendo is Nintendo just doesn't seem to listen to their fans. Every time they publish a new rule, or not a rule, but something they come out with, there's a big backlash from the fans. It's kind of like corporate just making the decision, sending it down to the first floor. They send it out to all the fans. The fans send their feedback, and it never makes it back up to corporate. They just don't care, don't listen. I don't know what the deal is, but it seems like every time Nintendo makes a decision now, there's big backlash, and they just don't care. And I mean, just for example, if you look at basically they released this trailer yesterday for this expansion pack, And if you look at the video on YouTube, there's more dislikes than likes, and it's by a big margin. The dislikes are basically, there's more than double the amount of dislikes and likes on this video, and you know, it's only been out for a day, so that ratio is going to get even worse. And I mean, something similar happened to Xbox a few months ago when they wanted to hike up the price of Xbox Live, but luckily Microsoft actually listens to their fans, so I think they reversed it in like a day. They heard the big backlash and they were like, all right, we're going to go back to the original price. But you know, that's something Nintendo doesn't usually do. I mean, to be fair, Nintendo could do the same thing. They could come back today and say, we're actually gonna, you know, split this out into different groups and you pay different amounts and you can buy monthly, yearly, whatever, who knows. But they're just not the type of company to really do that. And to add on to that, if Nintendo really wants to keep hiking up the price of their online services and keep adding stuff to it, they really need to ramp up their service, ramp up their value. I mean, the main thing, if you've ever run a speed test on your Switch, you know, you'll notice that your speeds are not nearly what they should be. For example, I have gigabit speeds here at home. You know, if I plug my Nintendo Switch, basically the new OLED actually has an Ethernet plug on the back of it, so I plug directly into there, and I was getting less than 100 megabits per second down versus the 1000 I should be getting, which is, it's terrible. I mean, that's bad, and wirelessly is even worse. It's like you'll get like 10 or 20 or something. It's something ridiculously low that should not be that low. I mean, if you run the same test on your Xbox, you're gonna get, you know, 4, 5, 6 times as fast speeds. And so it's just disappointing. They need to really ramp up their value add there and ramp up their back end and just get it going. So yeah, I'm rambling. I don't have much else useful to say, but I think the moral of the story is that Nintendo doesn't listen to the fans. They're just gonna do what they want. And the thing that sucks is that you can't just swap over to Xbox or PlayStation and play the same games. You know, Nintendo has a huge library of their exclusive games, and you know, you'd be missing out on tons of good games if you left Nintendo, and they know that. That's why they make these things. That's what I think. And regardless, let me know down below if you're gonna buy this service. And I'll be honest, after all this rambling, I'm still gonna buy it and try it out. I think it's something I gotta do just to you know, tell my fans, tell my subscribers what it's like, if it's worth it, that sort of thing. If I didn't have a YouTube channel like this, I honestly probably would not buy it. If they had like a monthly subscription or something, I'd probably try it out for a month just to, you know, spend, you know, $5 or $10 or whatever and try it out. But yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think down below, and have a great day.